Greetings. May the divine wisdom within myself recognize the divine wisdom within you. Let us anoint. Demystifying Occult Magic Part 6. Here we are. We've come to a point where we need to become sovereign. We've figured out who not to follow. And now we need to procreate and create something that'll last beyond the physical. So now that we know that the physical isn't reality, we need to create physically, but that creation needs to transcend the physical, much like the human body, right? Just like a woman creates a child, it transcends the physical. It is physical, but it is also spiritual, mental, soulful, and etc. So we're looking at this point from a point of power, personal power and protection. So we have a system set up of realizing the paradox of sovereignty. When you're relying on a sovereign above you, that is detrimental to your health, in a society. But if you are a sovereign who's self-caring, then you can join with other sovereigns, right? And it becomes a community of resilience, where there's no one central point. Every point is central. Every person is central to this world. So we build this layer of protection through our temple. And this is a big part of the organization of what we do in our lives. So each moment we're building our temple, actually. There's no moment you're not building your temple. You're just not might be recognizing it as a temple. And that's the essence of what we call Tantra, or the sacred is all. All is sacred. Yep. All that we strive to experience is sacred in our lives, no matter our lives. Physically, right? We have a connection to the divine. So when we build a temple, like a Templar knight is a great example. What was so powerful about these knights? They weren't giants. They didn't have super strength. What they had was temples, right? And a temple is a place where we live on this world of creation and destruction in equal measure, right? So whenever you create something in the physical, it will be destroyed in the physical, right? And likewise, in the spiritual, nothing is ever created or destroyed. So then we have this, again, huge paradox between spirit and matter being in one, wave and particle in one. And that is our lesson that we find ourselves in. So to free ourselves from the past habits, this is our time where you actually use the alignment of heaven. So if you know the mathematical relationship of how to set up your temple, like we could be talking about a lot of different things. We could be talking about your physical body right now, and learning how to stretch and be in the right position. And I think that's important. But also, like, whenever you clear a space in your home, that's a temple, right? Everything's a temple. As much as you put will towards something, you leave a mark in this world, and that has a resonance that repeats. So if you can align everything that you do, therefore your entire temple, all the physical things that you have an effect over, plus including your physical body, is in alignment with divine reality, which is mathematical, which is intuitively known through gnosis, being one with the divine, right? So that's why we channel this divine energy as much as we can, and then we act upon it. And then with these actions, we create this temple. And then when the temple is, let's say, in our home, and our home is locked, let's say, and there's a fence, and there's, a guard dog, and all this stuff. So your temple is not being degraded nearly as fast as you who are away from your temple, but you still have the sister particle within your temple because you created it, and therefore it has your signature on it. And anything that has your signature is basically part of your physical body. Like if I needed to draw fat from my skin to do some internal process needing fat, then my body would do that. It would transmute these things across my body. But you can also transmute waves whenever there's a sister particle. So in other words, if somebody has your hair doll and they say they're doing magic and they're acting directly on you, it's because they have this, beyond just the DNA, they have this connection to you. The experience of your life was experienced with the hair, which is conscious, and then so there's a shared time you have together. So you're like in the same timeline as that hair in a way. So it's like that person, and you are who might be doing a spell on you is very you're sovereign beings in and of yourself, where one can't really affect the other per se in a spiritual way. Because we're all going in our own direction. So there's like, time is irrelevant here, because it's not about personalities, it's about choices. Each time there's a choice point, it's like there's a branch of potentials, right? And every time you can kind of collapse that back into knowing like your internal truth and not being attached to a personality, because you're trying to stay one with the energy that is elusive at times, or we've been trained to be eluded by. So we have to be diligent and to extinguish the ego in such a way where we're only putting our temple in alignment with the divine. We're not trying to put our disorders into the temple, because then of course it'll have a detrimental effect. And that's why I recommend learning about magic, because if you don't know what magic is, you're still performing it when you create your temple. And you may say, well, I don't have a temple. But everything you create in your life, your car, it's going to have an effect on you just like a temple would, except that likely, unless you have that instinctual harmony with the divine, which I believe we all have at some level, but it's been, again, trained out of us generationally, and that's what generational trauma really is. So we use this opportunity as a way to face these realities, like of the physical realm and the effects it has on other physical things, and how that might be perceived to a soul within a physical body that is essentially wired into pain systems and pleasure systems, and is feeding in a way off of excitement, where a soul can't live in a boring life. I mean, our soul in this exciting realm. And we abhor boredom, but also it's because this physical realm is very different than being a soul, right? So it's, in some ways, it's very enticing. It's like when the Anunnaki, or the angels of Yahweh, were tempted by the women of earth. It wasn't so much just their beauty per se, it was their pleasure, it was their enjoying life that they didn't have in a direct experience of. They only had in like a waveform way, where they could kind of feel how great it was, but they couldn't really feel how great it was because they weren't themselves physical. So they chose to become physical, and that doesn't make one evil. If you're a high thing and you become low, that does not make you evil. What it means is you now have to strive to become high again. You're not just granted highness simply because you used to be high, because once you go down into something, you essentially collect things. As you go down, you become heavier and darker, essentially. Heavier and dark, right? And then as you go up, you become lighter and lighter. Light and light. So that takes away this judgment card when it's like, oh, this person's so horrific, I therefore judge them and hate them and want to hurt them. And we can basically throw that out the window because we know that person's us. We know that person needs to be dealt with in an appropriate way so they can evolve. We know part of that is being compassionate. We know part of that is keeping others safe. We know part of that is trusting the divine within us. And in my opinion, the divine within us is not calling for us to kill each other. It's actually calling us to keep each other safe. The opposite. So specifically, you're asking me, how do I create my temple? Because I can't tell you exactly how to do it, but I can tell you that you dive into each moment bravely. And as the heart opens, fear, comes, because fear has its own life as a thought. We say thoughts are nouns. Nouns are thoughts. It's a thing. Fear wants to exist. It wants to keep existing. And when you flood the existence with love, then fear has no place to exist within. It just becomes a forgotten dream. And we don't live in a fearless world, but we live in a world where there are people obsessed with making you fearful or trying to tickle your fear bone, but they're being less and less successful. I don't know if it's numbness from all this stuff, but it's almost like when wars used to happen, like Iraq, and people were up in arms, and now everybody's just disgusted and they want to look away. It's like a different vibe. I'm not trying to prove how bad it is. I mean, we are, but only to stop it. And I think this is kind of how we have to look at things more maturely, like, okay, this behavior is inappropriate, so we have to find what needs are being met by the behavior, and then meet those needs so that the behavior no longer becomes the way that the needs will be met. And the behavior being ego and competition, where we should have knowledge of oneness and care for one another. I think it comes to each one of us to go inside and to nurture ourselves, and to not choose categories of people that you think should be nourished, but instead think that all people should be. Any country, any creed, any intelligence level, any health quality, any people that abuse their bodies oftentimes with drugs are oftentimes thought of as not worth caring about. But it's almost like this is something that has a root cause. So if you don't try to address it, then it'll only become more and more accepted and hard to address. So if you address it a little bit each year, it'll basically be gone before you know it. It'll just fade away into a memory. So that's what we have to do with our temple. We tinker, we shift as the universe changes us, and we interact with the vibrations around us. So one day you might be 5'8", and one day you might be 5'10", and one day you might be really, really flexible, and one day you might be really, really strong, and one day you might be incredibly gifted at some magical power that you'll never be able to do again. And that's actually great, because if you were like Superman or Gandalf, then your whole job becomes saving all these regular people that don't have these powers, right? But if you're just a regular person and powers randomly turn on, not random, but without your control, then you don't have the responsibility of being the hero in that way, of using those powers, because you don't know, it won't be reliable. Only in situations where it doesn't have to be reliable is that warranted. So you can use your temple to bring the things around you that you want to draw to you, and to let go of the things that you don't want to have. And you want a vibration that is beneficial for biology, you know, like for human biology, and also for high resonance states of mind where we become fulfilled and healed and evolve. One of the biggest things to think about when you're bringing your temple is balance. Like I said, strength and flexibility. Balance. It's not one or the other. Someone who is just flexible is so useless, but someone who's the most flexible person in the world and just has a little bit of strength is very, very, very useful. Their body. And same with all the other combinations. If all you are is strength and you have no flexibility, then you are completely useless. But if you have a little flexibility and all the strength, then you become useful. Even if you can just move like that, then all of a sudden you can do something, right? At least it's a little something. But if you can bring it into balance, as much as your body is designed for that, because some bodies are designed to be strong and some are designed to be flexible, but every body and every point in time within a life has this perfect point of balance where we can strive toward and use our breath by taking in and letting go. It's always bringing us back to this central point. So your temple can be designed around a central point, and then from that center, it's almost like how the planets represent in their geometry represents different energies that we might have to deal with in our realm. So too does your temple, where you can put, for example, to make it connect Mars or Venus with the central sun, just having some stones on a table, for example. And you would put these planets in such a way that gives you the astrological energy that heals your, you know, soul or situation. Your desires are met. And you can do this intuitively, so therefore you don't have to look up charts, and if you're so inclined to use your intuition. So I guess we've talked about the light, so we'll talk about the darkness, right? The shadow of this 6th Demystifying Occult Magic lesson. And that you could imagine that anything turned on its head has kind of an opposite effect, if not quite the same, or quite the same power level, because it wasn't designed, like this power wasn't designed for harm. But there are those who would employ it for such things. And as they were once the hero and have become the villain, they have this playbook that comes from the hero's playbook, where certain aspects of the wisdom is effective in this physical realm, but it's just detached from the divine in such a way that it fades. It's like as we move in time away from that epoch that is now over and we start anew, then those things don't have the same effect. Like those limited lifespans and all those things that were in the past can remain in the past more and more as each day goes by in an exponential way. So then we can open our eyes to what that past was and even rewrite it. And I think in the past, people used this idea of temples to subdue the masses. They would use secret knowledge of alignment and the science even of ley lines and power nodes in the world and vortexes where they could tap into this energy and request things and use geometry and people's hair or, you know, mental imagery to have an effect with this type of magic on people. So that's like people are really afraid of magic because of cursing and hexing, and this is essentially what I'm talking about. But as we, you know, at this point we can, see all the effects of that type of cursing, whether it's really magic or it's just somebody saying something hateful. It's really essentially does, if you understand metaphysics, there's not that much of a difference between poisonous thoughts and ritual magic that's harmful, because they do something similar. If the ritual magic is maybe more organized and effective, it also often relies on the intention and the power of that sort of self-hatred, hatred of humanity, hatred of family, hatred of friend, and sort of fear of love mentality. So if someone's afraid of love, you can't necessarily convince them, that they should be loved easily. And you can't necessarily get them to think, in a healthy way easily, but you can detach yourself from the underness and the slave-like mindset, which has all been systematically indoctrinated in a way that is very on paper, it's very easy to free yourself from, right? Okay, so we all know, we found out that we've been indoctrinated, so all we got to do is tell the world, and everybody should be able to snap out of it. But in reality, that takes not just time, but it takes the right resonance, because the resonance that brought us into the darkness, isn't gone in a day, but it's also up to us to take the steps to clear the debris field. And so we keep aligning our temple, and then we think we're done, and then we do it again. But actually, we put more and more love and more intention each time, so it becomes more and more closer to the divine temple that has no physical space. And if we can connect back to the center point where all is one, and imbue that intention into our temple, then we are not just connecting to a physical temple that we built, but we're got a cheat code to get closer to that divine space without having to consciously go there, because your temples is working on your subconscious. That's where magic works, because the conscious is the realm of moving rocks up hills, but the subconscious is the realms of symbols and things that we don't even know how to teach in school. And how do you cleanse, right? The elements. How is earth cleansing? It draws things out of you. How is water cleansing? It washes things off of you. How is air cleansing? It dries and it freshens, right? Clears. And how is fire cleansing, right? It transforms and it purifies and it banishes. So we have all these four, and then we have the spiritual cleansing, which goes beyond the four, and it connects us to that we're born again in that center sun. And then when we connect like an umbilical cord from whatever, all your chakras to that central sun, it's like it fills you with the divine purpose that you were put here for, directly from the source. So whatever imperfections that the Anunnaki or the Yahweh or the apes might have had that created us, we have a direct connection because of our consciousness has climbed the ladder at this point, where we have a direct connection to the actual creator, and more as we practice. So the creator of all essentially is at the tip of our mind here. We're here to experience that in many ways, but also directly is available. So we're called to do a meditation now. We take a deep breath in, and we exhale. We push all the air out, relax the muscles of the face, push the abdomen in, all the air comes out. Sit up straight, shoulders back. Deep inhale in. And release slowly. Let go of expectation. And listen. The mother, the waters, the emotional keeper of memories. She whispers the story of your truth. It can't be written down. It can only be absorbed. It's the water that transcends heaven and earth, where all droplets become one. Within this water we draw all our health and let wash away all our sickness. And as this water is of the central sun, the spiritual sun that contains all the elements, this water is pure and cannot be tainted. So let it fill every space as it may. The space within you is free to grow. A seedling with perfect conditions. Just don't mess with it. Just don't poke it. Just don't put anything on it. Don't even water it. Just let the rains come. Trust Mother Nature. If she decides the seed does not live, it is her choice. This is not you. This is her creation. You're the witness. Dive into the witnessing. Notice. Deepen your awareness. The moment it pokes through the soil, you see it. At the peak of its fruit's ripeness, you pick it and eat it. And experience all consciousness from within this tree of life, eternal. Your birthright, so you choose. If you can let go of personality, of ego, of being led, of unknowing all that you know again and again and again. This is the space of the new earth, of immortality, of deathless life, of nightless day. Let us find this space within us where we profit and we experience and we bravely face all that is before us. So mote it be.